We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. And we are back. Hi, everyone. As always, thanks for being here. I come to you today with a guest that is so darn fun. And it's because we met just a couple months ago at my friend's wedding. So our little meet cute just makes it fun to have her on to begin with. So we went to my girlfriend Mallory's wedding. Mallory was Miss America 2013. The further you get away from things, the further the details just start getting hazy. So she won Miss New York the year that I competed for Miss New York. And then 6 months later, she went to compete at Miss America. She won Miss America, and I took over for her as Miss New York. So I was like the default Miss New York, as I like to say. It was still an awesome experience. Anywho, Mallory is someone who's always been really, really important to me. And maybe someday I'll get her on the podcast too. But anyways, Mallory was getting married. And so we drove up there for the wedding, and we ended up sitting at the table at the reception next to this group of women who I immediately fell in love with. They were so funny. I was dying, everything they said. Just great, great humor, very witty. And they were all from Birmingham, Alabama, which is where a lot of Mallory's campaign was when she ran for office, which is a whole nother story in itself in Alabama. So you know that they are like hardworking, intelligent women who were supporters of Mallory when she was on the campaign trail. And so we just got to chatting. And Lacey is the owner of this slow fashion, very successful boutique in Birmingham, Alabama. Like literally, she's been in Southern Living magazine, which I think is so cool. And so she's the creative director, and the store it's called Basic, basicshop.com. I'll make sure all the information about her store is in the show notes, but it's a slow fashion and ethically made lifestyle shop, and their ethos is centered around people and the planet. So they stock only ethically made apparel and lifestyle goods for people who really care about where their stuff comes from. So for me, I'm trying to, I don't need to buy anything currently, right? Like I think the best way we can serve our environment is to use what we already have. But moving forward, if I do have a gap or a need in my wardrobe, I want it to come from these dignified environments made by people who are paid a living wage. And, I want it to be materials that are going to last a long time, all of that. But as you'll hear in this conversation, I ask her these hard questions. At the same time, I'm like, but my kids wipe their snot on me all the time. And I can't just invest in these nice pieces because like I am a mom, right? Like I got to go to soccer practice. So how do I balance that? And so this conversation, we kind of started at our table at Mallory's wedding, because obviously she cares a lot about kind of minimizing our lives and minimal living and how that shows up in our wardrobes. And we were talking about all of the, this idea that women have so much in their closet and nothing to wear, right? And so we just were ranting about that together at the wedding. And all of a sudden her friend was like, well, she should be on your podcast. And I was like, she should definitely be on my podcast. So we exchanged phone numbers and she's on the podcast. And so this is someone who I feel like I've developed a really quick friendship with because we have so much in common and we're very, very passionate when we speak about this. And it's a topic that I know so many of us, especially women, but everyone in general tends to struggle with, which is how do we curate a more minimal closet that just still feels like it reflects us and our fashion and our needs and our budgets, our changing bodies. I think it's so important to note that so much of what we buy online doesn't look like it should, or we think it should, because it's not modeled on real bodies, which is another thing. They don't edit or change bodies on their website or anything in the way that they present the clothes, So this is the way she presents clothing and fashion really is I love how she says this in the website. It's in honor of humans everywhere. I'm like, yes, That makes sense. So, in honor of humans everywhere, they also donate a portion of every purchase to groups fighting for human rights. And they frequently partner with other organizations working to create a more just and equitable society. So, this is really an impact focused, women owned small business that I could not be more honored to bring on this podcast and to tell you that in real life, also Lacey is the best. And so, shout out to Mallory for our little meet cute and setting us up on our first date essentially at your wedding. All right, let's do this. Let's dive in with Lacey. Lacey, this is so fun to see you, to reconnect. I can't believe it's already been like well over a month, I think, since Mallory's wedding. So hi again.
Hi, how are you? I know I loved our little meet cute there. It was like kind of perfect, huh?
Yes, it really was. It was also hilarious because I felt like, well, I kind of already told the people like how we met and how I
Yes,
was like,
amazing.
I don't
Okay,
know who we're
wonderful.
sitting with, and it just turned out to be the best. Actually, Aaron and I are always like down to sit with people we don't know at weddings. Like, even though part of me is always like, oh, I want to sit with so and so I haven't seen or whatever, I just feel like
hmm
there have been few weddings that I haven't met awesome people. So, I think it's a good thing.
I feel very similarly. Like, it is always wonderful to reconnect and whatnot, but I also love to make new connections, especially in the space of people that I like respect and have a lot in common with or whatever else. It always feels like it'll be fun, exciting, new, and could potentially lead to like a connection like this, right?
Like
Who knows?
this. I was literally telling my dad about how we met, and he reminded me that my whole dad's side of the family is originally from Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh
And he
my
was like,
gosh,
you need to
seriously.
take the kids there anyway. He's like, I can tell you where their grave sites are. And I was like, a little morbid, but I'll go and I will go have a drink with
Absolutely.
Lacey.
Of course you will. Please do let us know if y'all come to town. We would love to put together a weekend for you.
Great. We'll get together after our graveyard adventure, it seems.
Lovely.
Well, Lacey,
Honestly, with Southern Gothic and whatnot, that could be a whole aesthetic. You never know.
exactly. It's a whole aesthetic. Speaking of aesthetics, though, okay, that's a great segue into why you're here today. I've already told the people a little bit about Basic, just kind of what was on
hmm
your website, but let's start from the beginning. Can you introduce yourself? Because I clearly
Yes.
just jumped right over that, and just tell everyone a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Lacey Woodruff, and I am the founder and owner of a ethical clothing shop and slow fashion, all pay living wages, lifestyle goods store based in Birmingham, Alabama. We are real big in our shop on quality over quantity, and we are also really big on investing in the things that we purchase such that they not only compensate the people that made them, but also work for us in our closets and our homes and our lifestyles in a real way. So less of the fluff and more of the foundation. And I'm also like, I don't know, a web designer by association and do some e-commerce consulting and other stuff too. But basic is my bread and butter, and it's what I love, and it's what I'm here to talk about.
That's amazing. A woman of many talents, which let's talk about that because you don't even have a background in fashion, which is insane to me because
No.
your pieces are just so beautiful. Everything about your shop just screams like I know so much about fashion. And then when we were talking at the wedding, you were telling me about your background and it blew my mind. So
Yeah.
let's rewind and go there. How did Basic even come about?
Yeah, so like at a very granular level, when I was a junior in high school, I was standing in Parisians with my mother, and I was like, "This is the shirt that I want for back to school." And she was like, "Lacey, you already have four white shirts in your closet. Can you not pick out something with a pattern or a something something?" And I was like, "Mom, this is what I wear." So I've always kind of gravitated. My store is called Basic for a reason. Most of the things in it are solid colors or they're patterns that are really timeless, like a check or a gingham or a tartan. But I was a financial advisor in my 20s. And I was working in corporate America. And many of you on the other end of this podcast know that corporate America is where a woman's style profile goes to die. So I was like, 25 playing finance every day. And I was putting on these pieces that like not only didn't really feel like they represented me, but I was having to replace them twice a year because they're not super well made. They're, mass produced things that I got in many of the stores that a lot of us have shopped in over the years, because those were the only options that we've really had access to or knew about. And I was super like unhappy from a style standpoint. I was quite frankly kind of pissed off that I was wasting money on like a weekday wardrobe when what I was wearing on the weekends was very different from that. And I felt like again, I got in a fight with my mom about a white shirt. Like I felt like I could marry corporate America and weekend Lacey pretty well if, there was just an option. So at the same time, again, I'm a financial advisor at the time, and I'm learning about all the different securities that I'm selling to my clients. And I am not somebody who can know something and then unknow it. And I started learning about where all of the profit margin was coming from a lot of the fast fashion corporations that I was purchasing these clothes that I didn't love from. And once I found out about that human capital piece of it, I was kind of like, well, eek, I don't want to participate in that anymore just as a consumer, because I do think that as individuals, our greatest power is our purchasing power. So like where we put our dollars matters. So I started, and I also was like, and you know what? Maybe there's some better options out there. It was relatively new in the Instagram business days then. Like you couldn't buy anything on Instagram, but I started finding these small designers, and started really locally to include a couple of people from Birmingham in the state of Alabama. And then kind of found people all over who were truly treating textile as a craft. They were building wardrobe foundational pieces that are meant to last for a long time, that are meant to be the pieces that your grandkids fight over one day. And so I started trying to buy from them, and noticed that as I was wearing these pieces in my office environment, all the women were like, whoa, that's really cool. Where'd you get that? Like, that's corporate, but it's maybe not. Like, maybe it fits you a little bit better. It's a neater fabric. Or so it snowballed, and I started doing it on the side as a pop-up, to talk to people about like the fact that there were other options for their wardrobes, other than just the kind of mall options that we've all known about our whole lives, and also to educate people about where their stuff comes from and what the value in investing in your stuff is. It's not much different in thinking about your financial investments. I don't want it makes much more sense for my wallet long term for me to think strategically about how I'm buying clothes in my life than it does for me to just buy disposable things here and there, you know?
We have to go back to how you made that shift from the financial world to the fashion world too. I want to hear that, but I was chomping at the bit to be like, yes, amen. Yes, everything you're saying. And it's so interesting that like we as women, there's this kind of expectation almost that like women enjoy fashion more. And sometimes I think that's true, but I also think
Right.
that it's woven into the types of clothes that we buy that we have to constantly buy more. Because like you think about a man, let's say in a corporate world, because that's where this all kicked off for you. They're going
Absolutely.
to have 3 to 4 high quality suits. And that's their uniform for work. And they have those suits. I mean, we know they have those suits for like 20 years, or at least until their bellies get a little too big for them, right?
Absolutely.
And then for women, we're shopping at, I mean, I'll say the names because I have no shame, but like we're going to go to Express, or we're going to go to the Limited, or all these different things that we were taught. Like once you, and I can go on a whole rant about this because it also goes into this whole corporate world where I remember getting my first job, and all my friends are, early 20s getting their first kind of corporate jobs. And I would see the Facebook messages that would make me want to pull my hair out. And the women would always say, got my first big girl job. And I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you wearing pull-ups? Like, is this what's happening? And there's in it. So everything is kind of like dumbed down for the woman. And I don't blame women. Like that's kind of just what it's presented to us to be. And so we kind of, not only do we present it's the patriarchy. Taylor Swift, where are you? Sing about it. And so we, not only maybe didn't take ourselves as seriously by the way we presented our jobs, but at the same time, we are also showing up at work in lower quality clothes, which it isn't about the clothes, but there is this sense that that as women, we're just going to constantly buy the cheaper stuff over and over again to stay up with the trends. And we're putting all of our money also into something that doesn't matter. I mean, our wardrobe matters, but like I said, like the pieces that fall apart and that it's not worth even
Mhm.
dry cleaning because you only paid $20 for it. And dry cleaning, you're going
Absolutely.
to spend more on that than on the piece itself. All of that drives me
Absolutely.
crazy.
And if you step back and look at it, it's because for the last 35, 40, really about 40 years, for the last 40 years, corporate fashion, corporate America, not even just corporate fashion, corporate entities have recognized that women are more concerned with social presentation, what is acceptable. We have to be in many scenarios. It is harder for us to get taken seriously in professional environments, et cetera, et cetera. But what we have allowed to happen over the last 40 years is for marketing to drive our consumer styles in a much different way than men have. So men still have their four really nice made suits, and it may take them to a certain point in their career before they're able to really invest in like one custom piece or something like that. But even before then, they're still getting pretty high quality pieces that are gonna work for them, like you said, for 20 years or more. Women are sold this trend based lifestyle, even in corporate fashion, even though nothing about it's really changing, which is wild to me. It's just a remarketing campaign, or it's let's change a little bit about how this present. Maybe we'll make it feel a little bit more modern, or this, that, and the other. But really and truly, we've been taught that we shouldn't invest in the four quality suits. We've been told that we should get four new outfits every season to stay fresh and palatable and presentable and whatever else.
Right.
Which kind of stinks, right? Because in the doing so, we don't feel as great in our clothes because we're not, number one, wearing as high quality of clothes. So they don't truly feel as good. The fabrics aren't as
Mm-hmm.
nice. The construction isn't really made for like all bodies. It's made for one particular pattern
Because it's so mass produced.
because it's
That's
so
what it
mass
is.
produced.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the concerns that, kind of the average woman might have when they think about slowing down their purchases and that kind of thing, and maybe simplifying their wardrobe, investing in those nicer pieces is like, how do I maintain a form of self expression in fashion, even with like a simplified wardrobe? So, what would you tell them?
So that's actually been kind of my favorite. It's like my own personal social experiment. So I really have, I wouldn't consider myself somebody who has intentionally built a capsule wardrobe. What I would say is that I have been somebody who's intentionally invested in specific pieces that I feel like are going to be really worthwhile for me for a really long time. And as such, I kind of have a capsule wardrobe as a result. And this is entirely style dependent. You can have a maximalist style or a minimalist style and still have a really intentional wardrobe. And pair things differently to make it wilder, layer stuff, figure out new ways to utilize your clothes. But ultimately, if you are investing in core pieces that you really fundamentally care about and that are gonna work for you for a long period of time, like I wear the same stuff all the time and I get compliments on it every single time I leave the house because I feel comfortable in what I'm wearing. Like I'm wearing things that I like to wear, and I'm wearing things that feel good on my body, and and I wear things that make my body feel good. And as a result, like my non-intentional capsule wardrobe became a capsule wardrobe, and it's one that works for me way better than anything I've ever owned prior to the last 7, 8 years of doing this. And it like takes a while to do that too, right? Like nobody go and cancel your whole wardrobe right now and throw everything like that. That's not the point of this. It's just like moving forward, having thought or being intentional about like, is this something that I'm going to want to wear in 2 months or even or in 2 years? And also, is it something I can wear to my kids' play and also to work with a blazer and also to the grocery store with some sneakers? And So
Exactly. Well, it plays into like a more minimalistic wardrobe, like you said, because ultimately you're slowing down. And I love that you said don't do it all overnight because sometimes there is and I'm not like dogging by any means other types of like influencers who are trying to help people find a capsule wardrobe online, but you see this kind of thing, just get rid of everything in your wardrobe, start from scratch and buy these 12 pieces. And I'm like, okay,
don't
I
do that.
understand what you're doing. Like,
Right.
and we'll talk about the decision fatigue and all of that. There is benefit in just starting from scratch. However, that is still fast fashion in the sense that you are making these very quick decisions based on what is working for someone else, like what their capsule
Absolutely.
wardrobe is. And people think, oh, capsule wardrobe means you'll have all denim, white, and khaki, and then you mix and match. And like you said, that's not going to always speak to everyone. That certainly doesn't, that's not me. I love that you're like, I'm a white tee girl. I'm like, I am a pattern kind of a girl. Like I want
That's
like bright
everyone I work
colors.
with is like that. It's the patterns, it's the plaid, it's the. Meanwhile, there's a man on our street who came in the shop the other day who was like, the woman who's always in cream. And that was legitimately how he described me.
I love it. Well, you do live in the South, so I feel like the South is known for all of those like bright colors and that kind of thing. That's amazing. The woman in the cream. Put it on your gravestone. The grapes are coming up
Exactly
a lot
that.
today. What is happening?
But
Why
that's
am I talking
okay.
about
You
grapes
know
so
what?
many
Honestly,
times?
maybe we're moving into some new season or something. I'm here for it. Rebirth. Come on, let's do it.
Rebirth. It's the rebirth of your wardrobe. Okay, maybe I should
Absolutely.
title this episode that. But anyway, um, but yeah, so it feeds really beautifully into that slower paced lifestyle where you are not like running to the next thing to try and redo your wardrobe all at once, right? Like there's good intent there, but it's okay to slow down, like you said, and we're just moving
Absolutely.
forward differently.
And
Yeah.
also, like, think about how busy our lives are in general as it is. Like, we've got kids with activities, we've got work lives that are like on overdrive post pandemic. We have to get groceries. The mental load is always like always compounding, always growing, and life is nonstop. So to also have to factor in like replacing your wardrobe to keep up with some arbitrary trend that a magazine printed a couple of times a year, like it adds stress to your life. It adds time. We don't, none of us, we all have a scarcity of time, right? To have to go and replace this jacket because that like bell sleeve is no longer the exact style, but you freaking love it and it looks great on you. Dude, reduce the stress. Just keep the one with the bell sleeve. And if you don't love it, dye it.
Yeah, there's ways to make it work for you. Like we don't have to do it the way the rest of the world is doing it, which is just get rid of it and get something new. And it also speaks to like marrying a sense of self in fashion with a classic style. Like I don't think everyone has to have this typical classic style in order
Right.
to have a more pared down wardrobe, but there's something to be said for not getting things that are overly trendy that will, no matter what, you can tell that you bought that 5 or 10 years ago. In the future, you'll be able to look back and see that. And so to say, okay, I love bright colors, that's me.
Right.
I feel really comfortable. Maybe, someone might say, I like really structured things, or I like things that are a little bit more boho or whatever, identifying those things. But then within that umbrella, not making trendy choices. Like maybe the color will always be awesome. So you don't need to get the bell sleeves, like you said, or to get I can't even think of a single trend right now because my brain hurts, but you know
What
what I
I
mean.
don't graphic tees with like words that I don't understand on it, like it's bussin' or gas or something.
Or in my millennial mom world, like the ones that are like mama, right? And I don't have anything against those. I have a mama, or I used to have a mama sweatshirt, but like to me in my brain that feels very, and maybe because that's when I became a mom, but that feels very 2016
Right.
2017, right? And moms are kind of like moving
Right.
away from that. It all changes a little bit. And so
It
anyways, I
totally does. It totally
it
does. And
changes.
finding your style profile, and maybe your style is you don't have one. Like there's a woman that I work with that has got a super, super eclectic taste. And it ranges everything from some days she puts together these outfits where she looks very like Victorian, and then some days she looks like she just walked out of the coolest like street style from Vogue in like 1994 in New York scenario. Like but she's only got like 30 pieces total. So she's wearing all the same stuff all the time. She's just figuring out new ways to incorporate it together. And I did want to go back to just for a second to the like not replacing everything all at once, or like not feeling like you need to go out and do, yeah, like I would encourage, or what I try to do like a couple of times a year, is to look at my wardrobe and say, what are the things that I actively gravitate to? Um, and I like push them to the side. So these are the things that I wear. These are the things that I've worn in the last handful of months, whatever else. I look at everything else. There are some pieces that you have in your closet that you're not only going to wear a couple of times a year. Like I only have a couple of long dresses because I don't go to a lot of occasions that require a long dress these days. But I do like have a purpose for those in my closet, right? I want to keep those. But look at everything else. And if it's something that you haven't worn in 5 years and it's a shirt that at one point you really loved, but your boobs changed after you had kids, make that be the next thing that you try and replace in your closet, and do it intentionally. Look around, try multiple things on that are shaped similarly, feel the fabrics. And you can still shop online to do that, right? Most people offer free shipping at a certain price threshold. A lot of people still offer free shipping across the board, but don't make knee-jerk split reaction decisions about the things that you replace or get rid of in your closet. Figure out replacements that will make sense for you for a really long time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, does that even work? Like, it's great that you loved it. Maybe you loved
Right.
that
But
leather
do you need it
jacket or
anymore?
pleather jacket. Yeah, but
Yeah.
does you ever wear anything like that anymore?
Right.
Exactly. Like I used to like love my pleather jacket when I was in my early 20s, but I don't go out anymore, so I really don't even
Right.
I would really have no use for a like leather jacket to put over a little going out dress because I don't have a little going out dress. I don't go out anymore.
I just we've got a secondhand or a consignment program at my shop, and I just rehomed a bunch of stuff that is exactly that. It was like some sheer shirts that at this age I'm gonna be done with those. But they're gonna look great on somebody else, you know. And in the meantime, I'm gonna find a button-up shirt that's a solid material as opposed to the sheer that was cool when I was in my 20s. Um,
Exactly. And, it's interesting too. I loved how you brought up a little earlier about how women feel this like it's so important for us to present ourselves well. And I think it's easy to point, to me, it's pretty obvious, is because, like you said, we have to be taken seriously. We like almost have to work harder to be taken
Very much
seriously.
so.
And we think it through, like everything from our clothes to our makeup. Like I think with makeup, like if you wear too much makeup, you aren't taken seriously. But if you don't wear any makeup, you're kind of seen as a slob, right? Like there's this,
Mm-hmm.
we're always trying to find that middle ground. And I think that in our wardrobes as well, there's almost a fear of investing into these nicer long-term pieces. At least for me, I would say, because I'm like, well, what if, I don't know, if someone doesn't like it or it is too much or it's too little? I don't know. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I want an easy out. I want to say it's not the end of the world if I need to switch it up, because the inside of me, I'm thinking about what other people might think maybe more than a man does.
Absolutely. I mean, that absolutely goes back to that whole, we've been trained for 40 years to be more concerned with how other people view us and how other people perceive what we're wearing or how we present ourselves than we are concerned with how we feel or how we present ourselves. In so many different ways in society, like we know this, women are taught to subjugate ourselves in some way. And it's not even necessarily like a conscious thing, right? But that is one of those things where we have been taught to consider first how other people are going to perceive how we present ourselves in this world than how we actually feel about what we're wearing or what we're spending our money on, even because ultimately, when I was still dressing for other people, I spent way more money on my clothes than when I started dressing for myself. And I buy higher quality stuff now that I dress for myself than I ever did when I was dressing for other people. But there's when you're satisfying somebody else's opinion of what's trendy or what's stylish or what's, like fashion forward, you can never keep up with that because people's opinions are always changing and somebody else's opinion will always matter because we're always being introduced to new external sources, whether it be digitally or in real life or some, who knows what the future looks like, AI, VR combo of the both. Um,
Right. Well, and there's this sense of belonging, right? Like when everybody
yes,
is wearing their golden gooses and drinking out of their Stanley cups and wearing their Lululemon belt bags. And, and again, I'm not like dogging on anyone
yes,
who has those things,
but
but there is this sense of belonging. Like, I get it.
right,
I'm
absolutely.
acceptable. And as women, it's like, when do we get to the point that what we put on our bodies is not what makes us acceptable? And all of us, I would say there's not a
Absolutely.
woman I've met that doesn't agree with the fact that the least interesting thing about our friends is their clothes. Like I
A
do not
hundred
care
percent.
what my friends wear. I just don't.
Not even a little
That's
bit.
not what makes me love them. I don't care what they weigh. I don't care about any of that. I want to, are you
If they're
funny?
wearing
Do you,
makeup, if they've
yeah,
straightened their hair, if they've seen the coolest movie recently, don't care. What's the quality and value of who they are as individuals? Like, that's
yes.
all that matters. That's
That's all that matters. Are you kind
which
to other
is which
people? Do
actually
you
kind of
care?
speaks which actually kind of speaks to your entire podcast ethos, which is like paring down all of the extraneous external stuff that doesn't matter, which absolutely applies to our wardrobe and our closet and our how we present ourselves in the world, and just boil it down to like what actually does matter.
What actually matters? And the thing is I think we can see it more clearly in other people. Like I can see that like I don't care if they're wearing X, Y, and Z. Um, I just like them because of who they are. But it's harder to then flip that on ourselves and trust that other people will find our value outside of what we present as well, you know?
Absolutely. And the reality is sometimes they won't.
Mm,
Sometimes we will still be perceived and judged because we aren't wearing the golden goose shoes and the Lululemon belt bag and the exact, you know, whatever the thing is for that week. But that's not about us. That speaks not to us at all. That's entirely about insecurities within that other person about how they may be perceived if they don't have those things. So
mm,
the coolest thing to me about younger generations, and like we're millennials, so I think this is us to a degree, but we're like the deconstructing generation is like what I joke about. Gen Z, they're not worried about what other people think about how they look at all.
it's so
You
bizarre to
know,
me in the best way. Like it doesn't even
it
cross
is
their
so
minds.
bizarre to me in the best way. It does not cross their minds. They're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why can't I wear this to church, or why can't I wear this to grandma's birthday party next week, mom?
Mm-hmm.
And mom's like, well, because that's not presentable. And they're like, but why?
Right. And I mean, obviously, there's still a little bit of that. Like, I mean, I've read stories from teachers being like, no, like the Stanley Cup is a thing at school and whatever.
Right.
And I think middle schoolers will be middle schoolers, generally
Oh,
speaking.
totally. I mean,
But
those kids are just really working through a lot of hormones, regardless of what the iterations of society look like.
exactly, exactly. It's going to be a rough scene down there anyway. But my little
Yes.
brother is 15 years younger than me. He's turning 21 this year. And I'm just always impressed by him and then just kind of his viewpoint on the world and how open-minded he is and like you said they just don't necessarily care about those kinds of things. But I would say on the flip side too, I'm curious for those who do enjoy fashion, clearly you enjoy presenting yourself in a way that reflects who you are, as an expression of yourself. I
Mhm.
think a lot of us love that. So how do we express ourselves without using it as this is a little bit deeper of a question because we're going to go there,
Yeah,
as a form
absolutely.
of like self-identity? Like where do you draw that line of like this feels good for me, I feel confident in this, without chasing the next thing even for your own self and feeling good, and that dopamine hit of buying a new piece, and that becomes your whole identity, is how you present yourself.
I mean, I think for me that goes back into like what actually matters. And as long as self-talk is always centered around what matters, or not even self-talk, just like how you go through life, how you walk through life, how you participate as a consumer in society, how you participate as an individual in relationships, as a partner in business, etc. What really matters? We live in a world of so much noise. And so, absolutely, there is temptation to, as a part of this journey, almost take some level of ownership to it, such that you get lost in the ego of all of it. And that's not what any of us should be doing in anything, right? One of my best friends growing up, her mom's named Sally, lovely lady. And Sally used to tell us growing up, everything in moderation. So as we're moving throughout our style journey and our individual like character development journeys and our career development and all of those things, as long as like how we approach things is always in moderation and we're able to step back from it and look at it without the ego piece of it, then it is manageable and doable. And I think every woman in the entire world is able to do that, because women inherently are like, let's be serious, we're just like way better with our egos in general.
We can keep them in check.
And many of us have children to keep them in check for us. So, there's that piece of it too.
They'll get you.
But yeah,
they don't let you forget it.
I would say just keep everything in perspective. Style is just one piece of the overall part of your life, and it's not the only thing that's ever going to make you happy. But there are things about it that can make you happier. So
that can be fun. It does.
Right.
It feels good to present yourself well. It feels good to feel good about yourself. It feels good to wear clothes that feel good on your body. Like you were talking, like certain textiles or certain fits of things that you just like don't have to worry about things as much. And as much as I could go on forever about like that deeper piece, and it's like you said, it is the reason I do love paring down as this umbrella of everything, because it always goes back to being intentional in these mindsets behind things, right? Like it's not just about having a prettier home, decluttering. It's not just having a more minimal wardrobe, because that's more classic and
it's about
like
using your brain.
It's using your brain. It's that finding that self-confidence. It's about moving through the world and being empowered to make intentional choices that make your life easier and help you feel good, right? Like you feel good when your house looks good. You feel good when you put on clothes that feel good. Like it's
absolutely. And that reduces your stress, and and you get that that serotonin boost anytime you like look at every time I mop my floors, I'm like, oh, wow.
Right.
Look at these babies shine.
Look at them. Right. I'll take a picture. I will literally send a video to my husband. Be like,
right.
Look at our floors. Exactly. So old. But well, and it's also, like you said, less stressful to walk into a closet, pick out clothes, knowing, because there's this whole thing. I think we talked about this at the wedding.
Knowing they're going to feel good.
Yes. There's so many women that say, I walk in my closet and have nothing to wear. I think this is what you and I talked about at our table at Mallory's wedding even.
Yep.
And what you offer like in your store and your whole like reasoning behind what you do is so that we don't have the stress of looking at our closet, being like, none of this feels good. I'm going to look outdated. Maybe it doesn't fit me right. It's not comfortable. And then we just have literally nothing to put on our bodies, even though we have all of this money that we've spent staring at us in our closets. And it takes longer to get out the door. It's stressful. We don't feel good about ourselves when we leave. We feel guilty about the money that we spent. I mean, it's just endless, right? And
endless. And the negative self-talk that comes along with that too, that we do, like, adds to the mental load, adds to just the beating up that we already do of ourselves on a daily basis, which is unnecessary.
Right. So on a practical level, then what would you say to someone who that cares about the well-being of workers overseas and the planet and their own stress, right? Of like wanting high quality
Absolutely.
Clothes for them, but they say, it's just too expensive. Like, what would you say to them? You've touched on this a little bit, but yeah.
Absolutely. So that is like a super important part of this conversation, right? Is that ethically made pieces, specifically if they're brand new, are going to come with a higher price point. They are somebody's livelihood. They are being valued for the labor and the quality of the materials that are put behind them. But that does mean that they are a lot of times going to be a more substantial financial investment, and we can't always do that. I would say a combination of trying to pursue a new piece once in a while with quality vintage. And then also, there are a lot of companies like mine nowadays that are doing secondhand programs. So, like at Basic, we've got a program called Back to Basic, where any of the brands that we've ever sold, we will buy back from you if the pieces are no longer serving you in your wardrobe. So we'll give you some store credit to the shop, and then we will turn around and resell those pieces at a much lower price point. So, and these are like well-loved pieces, right? So, pieces that may have a teeny tiny bit of wear on them, but for the most part, look as brand new as they did the day that they left our shop the first time. So there are a lot of programs like that across the internets, across boutiques these days. And then another option too is rentals. Rentals are a great way to supplement your wardrobe as opposed to buying something new, because the reality is that every once in a while a trend can be fun. And we don't want to completely reduce that aspect of fashion. You know, if we take it so seriously that there is no, I mean, if you're going to this Taylor Swift concert or you're going to the Beyonce concert and you want to get dressed for whatever the theme is, like, I feel that. I'm here for it. Women supporting women. Let's do it. Rentals are awesome for that option, you know? So there are really intentional ways that you can combine new ethical fashion with thrifting, with vintage, with consignment, and do it in a way that is sustainable for your wardrobe and for your wallet, and is not like totally, oh my gosh, I just spent all this money all at once. I do usually recommend that everybody, and this again can be any shopping strategy of those that you choose, start with a summer uniform and a winter uniform. So buy something for those days when you open your closet and you're like, I hate everything in here. I feel terrible, or I just am like in a bad mood, or I'm stressed out and I don't want to decide. Have something that is your designated, this is my summer go-to, this is my fall winter. I'm in the deep south, so we really only have 2 seasons. If you live in a 4-season state, choose 4. Uh,
You're either
but
burning hot or like,
I was gonna say, like, here it's like 9 months of the year, it's over 100-degree heat index, or there's like 3 months of like frigid, humid cold. It's very strange. But if you know, have seasonal uniforms that can be those foundational things that like take the brain process out of it. This is what I will go to on those days when I have too much going on and I just need to know I'm going to feel good in this outfit and it's going to serve whatever I need it to serve.
oh man,
Yeah,
that feels good even thinking about that. You know, like the idea of just being like, I don't have to think about this, and this is what I want to wear today, and this is going to feel good. No matter if I'm running to the grocery store or dropping my kids off here, or I'm going to lead my small group on Wednesday night at church, or whatever it is, like something that can just kind of work across the board.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really, really smart. And kind of another tough question. This is like the other one besides the financial piece that I think is a bit of an uphill climb for people who are trying
Hmm.
to wrap their heads around this new way of slow fashion, is the moms who say, I cannot wear, and I fall into this camp if I'm being honest,
Hmm.
I can't wear nice clothing because I have kids. So how can I still slow down my shopping, make more ethical choices, but I don't want my kids to spill or like wipe their snot
Hmm.
on an $80 white tee.
Absolutely, super valid. So it again, and so much of this ties back to this, but that 40-year marketing campaign that I was talking about, the quality of the materials of our clothes went downhill at the same time. So a lot of the clothes that we've been purchasing are not meant to withstand damage or spills, or they're not easily launderable. They've got an acrylic byproduct that immediately absorbs whatever it is. They're not meant to last for us. Natural fibers, so your 100% cottons, your linens, Believe it or not, silks, true silks are actually super durable. Huge marketing ploy again to convince us that silks were like this really delicate fabric. It's because they weren't silks that Banana Republic was producing. It was a viscose blend that again wasn't meant to hold up. So if you're buying natural fibers, again, silks, raw silk especially, I love. And if you are in southern states, it's really breathable, super durable. All of these are machine washable. There's an occasional like silk charmeuse standpoint, which is this shiny silk that you would want to just dry clean instead. But really and truly, natural fibers can withstand your kids' hands. And they can withstand a spill here and there, and they can withstand way more than we give them credit for. And also, there are a lot of cool things that we can do with clothes as they get damaged. We're currently working with a local textile artist in Birmingham because we've got some clothes that we roll a rack outside our shop during the day so that people know that we're a clothing store and can see some stuff right when they walk by. Every once in a while, one of those pieces gets damaged and we can't sell it, right? Or every once in a while, somebody will try something on in a dressing room and they'll get lipstick on like a place where we can get it out, but we're not gonna get that out and then resell it as a brand new. Yeah,
I hear you.
We need to do something else with it. It needs to be discounted in some way, or it needs to. But the reality is it just gives us an opportunity to create a one of a kind piece of something new. So we've partnered with this textile artist who's taking her scraps to add patches or embellishments or embroidery over where like a really aggressive deodorant stain happened on a black shirt. We dry cleaned it and you can like barely see a teeny tiny just spot going through. She did this entire incredible like beach embroidery pattern over it. All of these things take time. I mentioned dye earlier. Dye is something that we do not talk about enough. RIT dye is actually really, really non-toxic and okay for little ones to interact with as they're touching your clothes. They've got washing machine packs now. So you can throw a yellow shirt that you spilt, a glass of red wine on and forgot to stain treat for a few days. So then it was a little bit, which that happens, right? Clothes are durable, but also we're human and there's that human aspect of it matters too. But
oh yeah,
that shirt doesn't necessarily need to not work for you anymore. You just dye it a different color. Use one of the RIT stripping packs. It'll strip all the yellow out. And it'll strip out that stain too. And you remake your wardrobe in real time. So there are like a lot of ways to make all of these investments work for you in perpetuity.
Right. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm thinking of the mom. I'm so sorry. I just want to.
Yeah, no, you're great.
Well,
I love this.
Don't forget what you were going to say. But I was just thinking, like, in my head, I'm like, oh man, okay, well, that like takes extra brain power. But also, when you're taking care, when you really love the items in your closet, like you're willing to do a little extra to keep them because you love them, because they feel good. You like wearing them, all of that, right? And also, you have more time. There is more time on your hands, I find, to do things like that when we aren't overwhelmed by all of our stuff. And
Absolutely.
Even if you just go to your closet, if I walked in and I only had 20 total pieces in my closet, that would cut back on not only laundry, but just like the time it takes to get ready, all of the brain power that it takes to think through my days, all of that, right? And that energy then I could put towards Googling this awesome dye pocket thing that you absolutely have to send me the link to so I can link it in the show notes and do that for my shirt, right? Like that sounds so much more feasible to me if I'm not like also wrestling with 300 things in my closet.
Absolutely. And again, yes, it doesn't have to be something super complicated like embroidering it or adding a patch or whatever else. It can be as simple as dye. There's also the piece of it too that like, guys, we're human. We don't have to be perfect. So our clothes can have a stain on them. My very favorite skirt is one of my greatest investment pieces. When I actually break down the cost of it, it's probably like a penny per wear because I wear it so frequently. And it's had a small hole near the hemline for like the last year and a half. I don't care. And it's not because I'm like I've transcended some level of like thought in my brain. It's that genuinely we're all human, and like sometimes we eat a hot dog and we drop mustard on our shirt, and it doesn't mean that shirt has to be dead.
Also, no
It
one knows
just,
how long this stain has been there. That's what I tell
no
myself.
one knows.
Uh-huh. It could have happened this morning on your way to
And
go see them.
And quite frankly, exactly. And quite frankly, most people don't notice. Like maybe
Yeah.
if it's in a super, like where people's eye contact goes to spot, but for the most part, like I've never had anyone be like, "Oh, you've got a hole in your skirt." And again, it's been there for like a year and a half, and it's not small. It's like the size of a quarter.
Right. And
Um,
no one's thinking, oh, Lacey doesn't dress well. Lacey's sloppy.
exactly. Like it's still exactly like it's still fine. It's a skirt, and it's very cute, and it's not like falling apart. It's just got this one little thing that's wrong with it. So also like giving our clothes permission to not be perfect all the time either is also a huge piece of that, reducing stress on ourselves about our wardrobe. Like, if it's wrinkled that day, it's wrinkled.
It's going to be okay,
It's gonna be
everybody.
okay.
One of my favorite white shirts has a small chai tea stain on
Hmm.
it. It's like kind of like near my hip area. And I still love it. It still works so well. It hits exactly where I want it to hit when I'm wearing jeans, or even I can barely tuck it into a shirt if I want to, or it's cropped enough that I can wear it out of, or a skirt. I meant, out. It's just a great shirt, right? And
Absolutely.
because I love it, I'm not going to let this chai tea stain
No,
ruin my good time. And
as you
so
should not.
first of all, A, no one has, if they've noticed it, they certainly haven't said anything. And B, how do they not know it's from the chai that I had this morning? Like that's
Exactly
all
that.
I think. I tell myself that every time.
Exactly that. And that's really good self-talk. Because it's true also. It's really
Right.
true.
Right.
Nobody's noticing.
Nobody's really noticing. And it's interesting too, like, I laugh at the guy that said, oh, the woman in the cream or whatever.
Mhm.
I have noticed this more and more the older I've gotten too, is the people that I see as the most fashionable people repeat things more than the people who are like very, very trendy. There's a woman that leads our worship at church on Sundays, and she wears probably two blazers. There's a gray one and a khaki one, and I can tell you about them. And I always think, oh my gosh, she's so fashionable. She is like, to me, a star of fashion. And she wears, I could tell you every piece in her wardrobe. So I don't think she's less fashionable because she doesn't change things up every single week with a new floral dress. Like, I think she's so fashionable because she wears the same things over and over again. And it's such a bizarre thing when I think about it. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I following all of these like fashion influencers that are constantly on trend when the people that I think are the coolest fashionably are the ones that repeat things?
That's actually the critical math. It's that the people that are repeating things are repeating them because they make them feel confident. So it's not that the thing necessarily looks exponentially better on them than it does on anyone else or than what anyone else is wearing. It's that they look really comfortable in their own skin, and that's what you notice. It's that they feel good in their clothes. They're not stressed out about how they're perceived. They are comfortable in their own skin.
Wow. Okay, listen, I'm going to need you to come back on because we didn't even get to go back and talk about
Absolutely.
your switch from finance to fashion, which that again is like such a cool story about how that came about. And I feel like we could talk about this forever because I wanted to go into deeper things about decision fatigue and our different body
I'm
types.
so sorry.
And
I talk so much.
are you kidding me? First of all, this is a podcast. So anytime someone says that, I'm like, that's literally the point.
You're right.
Thank you so much for talking because that's why you're here. But I want to talk about like body types and how our bodies change as women and how we can have pieces for that. So I am
Absolutely, which is a hugely critical part of this conversation. So yes, I would love to come back on for that.
I know. Well, actually, okay, hold on. Because I can't let us go without touching on that.
We should touch on that really quick. And I can make it like a 1 minute blurb.
You don't even have to. We have at least 2 minutes.
Wonderful. There are so many brands. Actually, let's even take a step further back than that. It is insane that we were ever taught that we should be one size for any amount of time. I'm not even talking about for a period in our life. Like as women, we menstruate once a month, and I don't know about y'all, but my abdomen is a totally different shape during that week than it is the other time of the month. And I don't necessarily want to have a whole different wardrobe for when I'm on my period, right? In the
I
same
don't want
way
a
that like
period wardrobe. I just don't.
I don't want a period wardrobe. I don't want a pregnancy wardrobe. I don't want to, none of us want any of these extra wardrobes, right? We don't even want a wardrobe for when we just like gained 5 pounds, 10 pounds for 6 months and then we lost it again, or we lost 10 pounds for 6 months and then we gained it again. Like our clothes should be able to mostly accommodate that, right? There are some tailored styles if you want them to fit a certain way that are going to be a little bit more, or not a little bit more, they're going to be a lot more specific. But there are really a lot of brands out there now that are not only cognizant of this problem, because is exactly what it is in fashion, they're actively addressing it. So looking for clothes that have range sizing is really important for women. Something that is like an extra small to medium. For whatever reason, we've been taught to think in our heads that that's like a bad thing if we're buying within a range of clothing. But y'all, that's what makes the most sense for us because our bodies are not ever going to stay 100% the same for our entire lives. And how we feel in our clothes does impact how we feel in our body. So the clothes that we're wearing that make us feel good, when they don't fit anymore, we we feel double bad, right? We've already, because we've got this really weird in society obsession with women's bodies. Somebody's already made a comment about how you've lost or gained weight. And so you've already internalized it in some way. And then you go to put your favorite outfit on and it doesn't fit. And you internalize it again in a totally different way. We don't deserve this, guys. Like our bodies don't deserve it. Our minds don't deserve it. And fortunately, there are brands that are addressing that. So brands that are doing not just the one size thing that we were sold in the early 2000s. That's not a real thing, but it'll be one size plus, one size two plus, and that those three sizes fit pretty much the entirety of the female body span. And it doesn't have to just be a caftan or a sack dress that's doing that. Those things are awesome for certain things, but there are so many options out there that are really, really well thought out, that are engineered intentionally, that were made by women for women, that will make access to nursing easier when we've got a kid in our arms, that will make access to changing a bandage if we have an ostomy bag or we've got a C-section, that will make, these different lifestyle needs for us possible through lifestyle changes. And I'm more than happy to send you some recommendations for brands for that you can link. We do sell some brands in our shop that absolutely are that, because that is what I believe the future of all women's fashion should be. There should never have been a scenario where we were told that our clothes should only fit us in one time of our lives. If you look, I was actually with a woman this past weekend at an event at my shop. She is the head of the Asian American Institute in Birmingham and is from South Korea originally, and was showing me the hanbok that she had gotten on her last trip to visit family back home. And a hanbok, for anyone that is not familiar with Korean fashion, if you're thinking in like American fashion, is really just kind of a like maxi dress that has two straps across the top and then it is connected here and it just kind of fans out. And then there's all manners of wrap tops that you can put on it, or a little shell that you could put over it to make it look like a skirt and a top. But in the back of a hanbok is an overlapping panel. And newer ones have Velcro. Traditional hanbok has drawstrings, but so that there's never a scenario where your hanbok wouldn't be able to be adjusted to your body, because why would you have to buy the hanbok more than once,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Like,
Because
come on. It just makes sense. It just makes sense.
it just
Oh,
makes sense.
you have to send me definitely links, because that was my next question. Is like,
Absolutely.
where do we find this? Because I
Yes.
am not exposed to this, right? Like I am
Yes,
at the beginning.
absolutely.
I would say I'm at like the advanced beginner level where of my like slow fashion journey, where like I'm not shopping at Sheen or Shine or whatever you call it. Like I
Yeah,
no
yeah,
longer
yeah.
shop at Old Navy. Like I don't shop at those kind of like fast fashion type places, but I still struggle with all the questions that you helped answer so much today with those questions. And also, where do I go? Because I think it's so hard for me. Like I just Google like slow fashion, right? And it just feels a little overwhelming. So I would love to get a couple of links
Absolutely.
from you. And the way you broke it down right there too,
For
because
sure.
I think in my head, I'm like, how does that work? And you're like, oh, like that's a great example of like the drawstring in the back or the Velcro where you can just make it a little tighter. Like this, this doesn't have to be that complicated.
Exactly. That's the whole thing is like it never was that complicated. We complicated it. And so now we're all going to uncomplicate it for ourselves because we're paring down in all of our ways. Our wardrobes, our stress, our, you know, our self-criticism,
Mm.
the opportunities for self-criticism, for self-doubt, for insecurity. Like we're all strong, beautiful, wonderful women. We should all feel wonderful in our clothes all the time. We should feel good about who we are and what we bring to this world and what we're doing in this world. And we can do that. We're retaking fashion, women. We're doing it.
We're taking it back. I love that. I love it so much. Okay, on that note, what is something that you are currently paring down? And this can be like a physical thing, like decluttering, or this can be a thought, like a belief, anything that you're paring down.
So I was actually listening to your episode from today earlier, and I have also been decluttering my own personal backstock. So I, in COVID, so during pandemic, when we reopened our shop, we were doing all of the things, but I got OG COVID at the end of 2020, right, which really sucked. And I've got a friend now at UAB doing a study on this because there's apparently a pretty heavy correlation, but I lost a bunch of hair as a result.
Oh,
Like a ton, like 40% of my hair.
oh my
And
gosh.
as it was growing back in, because I have curly hair, it was like really short. So there was like two different, I went through a hair journey. I bought so many hair products.
Sure. That makes sense. That
And
makes
so for the
sense.
last year, I have been trying to whittle down the hair products that I bought through my now what I now consider my own personal like early midlife crisis, which was that hair loss scenario.
Oh my
Fortunately, ladies, it
gosh.
does grow back after COVID.
Yeah,
Um,
FYI. But still, I can see how
FYI, it
you
does
would
grow
end up
back.
with like a bunch of different brands of
I,
hair
I
product.
did.
And now you're like,
I
what
was
do I
like,
do with
what's
all
gonna make
this?
it grow fastest? What's gonna what
Right.
what how can I these little hairs that are sticking up? How can I make them lay flat? So like, listen to me. I've talked all about overcoming mindset in your wardrobe, but clearly it took me a bit for my hair. So
Listen, it's a
we're
perfectly
all a
normal
work
thing to want to feel put
we're all a
together.
work in progress.
We are all a work in progress. And what is something that you are looking forward to right now?
Oh my gosh. Really, I'm looking forward, like at a really granular level, this coming weekend. I've got a friend who is a jewelry artist who lives in San Diego that used to live in Birmingham. She'll be in my shop to do a pop-up. And then we are hosting a pride event for our local queer community. And I'm really stoked about that. It's my favorite weekend of the year,
Oh my gosh. If it's going to be a pride event, it's going to be the most fun. So that
right?
sounds wonderful. I
I
love
know.
it. I will never forget. I ran when I was living in New York, I did I forget what the name of it was, but it was an LGBTQ 5 miler like run.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
it was the most fun event of my
Dude,
entire
so
life. They
much
had
life.
so much life, and there's just like everyone is just so cheerful. And I remember at the very end they had the New York City gay cheerleaders
That's
doing this
amazing.
big thing, and I was like running towards the end, and
It's
I ended up not
amazing.
listening to my music the whole time I was running the whole 5 miles. I took my earbuds out because like I don't want to miss how much fun everybody is on the sidelines. It was so great.
Absolutely. It is so awesome to be in empowering, celebrating spaces, you know?
It's just the best. All right, and last but not least, where can everyone find you online? I'll put it in the show notes for them.
Yes, so my shop is called Basic. And that is like kind of a play on we're all basic girls out here.
Hey.
But it's abasicshop.com or at a basic shop. And then my personal Instagram is Lacey M. Woodruff. And I don't do a ton of talking about minimalism on that, but I do a lot of talking about conscious thought. So would love to have y'all tune in there as well.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll have that. And then everything that we talked about, I'll email you and get those links. That would be amazing. In the show notes for
Wonderful.
everyone. Lacey, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
this
so much.
conversation was one of my favorites. It's just truly
I
one of my
really
favorites.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. I had an absolute blast. This is such an important conversation. And really, in general, ladies, like, yes, the paring down of all the things, like simplifying a really complicated world for ourselves. Thank you, Shannon, for holding this kind of space for everyone.
It is an honor. You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face, so thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at Paring Down Podcast, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.